what is IVF and how does it work?
By taking the egg and the sperm, fertilizing it in the lab, creating an embryo, and then replacing it back into the uterus. That is what IVF is all about. And the problem is that biology and dreams sometimes are not going together for the woman. So if you can just separate these two, have your eggs frozen. And one message that I would like to give is that just because you freeze your eggs does not mean that you cannot conceive naturally later.
True.
This is just like an insurance that you can have just in case you need, because your egg quality at the age of 38 and if you've frozen your eggs at 30, it's going to be very different.
But there are certain untold realities or shocking revelations, or I was just watching this series on Netflix about 1,000 babies created via IVF.
This is our next generation going out, right?
Yeah,
we can't just, So the problem is, if you have multiple babies created using like one sperm sample, or you're going to have consanguinity, right? Somebody is going to be somebody's half brother, half sister, something like that. They again getting married, not knowing what is happening. So that is why now, laws and rules are being put in place so that you're very strict about using and limiting how you use the donor eggs or the donor sperms, which is very important.
Can you elaborate more on the husband side or the male side of things?
Just knowing that there's somebody to support you, somebody has your back, for somebody who you mean more than just having a baby, right? You're not a means or you're not a womb to carry his baby, but you are the person that is important. As long as that feeling is conveyed through different things, you can't, actions are important. I think a very important role, husband, family, close friends, I think very important.
Welcome to Unfiltered Conversations, Dr. Mamta Dighe ji. And one might say that your art of both the science and creating families is extremely inspiring for all of us. It is amazing to have you speak about this different topic, which usually is something which is unheard of. People are aware of it, but nobody knows the depth of it, and you are the expert in this field. So would you like to tell something more about what you do, your expertise in this field of art?
Thank you for having me. I have been in this field since the last approximately 25 years. In fact, I'm one of the first persons in India to actually have a fellowship in reproductive medicine. Because otherwise people used to just have, do 2-month courses. So I started this journey very long time back, and it's been very, very fulfilling. A decision that I made very long time back, which was not really very common that time, was that I decided to stick only to doing infertility and ART practice. And 20 years later, now there are people who do it. But when I started it, a lot of people called me foolish. They said that's not the way to go. That I think when your passion drives you, then you do find a way out finally about how things should go.
Absolutely. And I would like to say that art means assisted reproductive technology, and it is closely related, and it is, if you've heard of IVF and test tube babies, if I'm not wrong, and she can delve more into that. So my first question, when you began your journey of art with Dr. Kamini Rao and later moved to Pune to establish the IVF Center at Dinanath Mangeshkar Hospital, what were the influences during this time or during your younger days of getting into this field? Because this was way back before 2015 when you founded Zenith. So like you said, it is a new field and everything, but what made you choose this?
So I think there were two key influences, not during the time that I was growing up, but around that time. One was actually looking at the embryo in the laboratory and feeling that, you could actually create life outside of the body. It was fascinating. And to be able to do something like that and actually look at it was wonderful. And the whole thing of how far science can go to help individuals. The second is a little personal. When I delivered my daughter, I nearly died. So everybody was called and told that she's not going to survive the next day. So just get prepared. I was in the ICU and I was conscious. So for the first time, the fear of death was not there. The only fear was that I won't be able to be with my daughter. And that feeling that something can let you go beyond yourself, like you're not, I mean, even death doesn't bother you. It's just the feeling of wanting to be with your child. And that feeling stayed with me. Luckily, I survived. Thanks to God. But that feeling didn't leave me. And I felt that if through my work and through science, I would be able to let people experience not only that joy, but that feeling of, I think, that expansion that you have, that you are something much more than what you limit yourself to. I think these were the two key things that really made me passionate about this work.
Hats off to you. And thank you for trusting me of sharing your story here, because it takes a lot of inner healing and strength to go through what you have been through. So thank you for doing that on this platform for us. Moving forward, when you founded Zenith in 2015, I would like to take it as an entrepreneurial pursuit for you, because in 2015, now people are aware of what IVF is. There are a lot of celebrities who have opted for it, and that has created awareness. But taking an entrepreneurial decision of starting your own center into advanced fertility treatments and all of that was a risk for you. And like you said, that people called you foolish for doing that. So can you delve a little deeper into how did you think about it, and why did you feel that this was the need? Did you find any gap?
So I think, like I just said, something like this is very personal, and it is also something that is very advanced. It's also something that people like to keep private.
True.
So what I felt is that there was a need to have a niche place where people could feel comfortable, they could discuss, and also the direction with which you wanted to take that place would be totally in your control, because a lot of advancements were happening in IVF, and unless you are able to drive that, it sometimes becomes difficult.
True.
So I established the IVF center at Dinanath Mangeshkar Hospital, and it was a wonderful place to work. But obviously there was something much more that I wanted to bring, the compassion and the advancements in technology within that time that is required. Because if you bring it in too late, then it loses its worth.
True.
So I think all this put together, I decided, and frankly, I didn't know it was an entrepreneurial spirit because I just did it. I just wanted to do it. So I just did it. And looking back, I understand, probably there was this kida. But that's the way it happened.
But that's incredible, because you took that decision. You have transformed many lives and many families right now. How many have you, I'm very interested to know, how many have Zenith touched so far?
I think more than 25,000 at least,
That's amazing. Now, getting into the core questions, because I'm also very interested to know about the topic. What is IVF and how does it work?
So, the first step for a pregnancy is the creation of an embryo, which happens when the egg of the woman gets fertilized by the sperm. This whole thing is happening inside the body of the woman. The semen sample comes out of the body, but the whole process is taking place inside. When this process is done outside of the body by taking the egg and the sperm, fertilizing it in the lab, creating an embryo, and then replacing it back into the uterus. That is what IVF is all about.
And that's a lot of technology and science, because there might be risks also while...
Yes, when IVF first started, for some it was blasphemy, right? I mean, you're creating life outside, you're not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean,
Yeah.
science doesn't wait for everybody, and the strides have been wonderful in this field, yeah.
And at what stage do you must consider doing the IVF, and what is the process of, even thinking about doing an IVF? Because I'm sure that there must be like some requirements of the body also to adapt to this process.
You're so right, so right. I think I won't say that there's a particular stage of doing the IVF, because for a man who has a 0 sperm count in his semen sample, waiting makes no sense. So it is an absolute indication for him to do IVF. For a woman who's both tubes, there are 2 fallopian tubes by the side of the uterus, and if these 2 tubes are blocked, the transport of the egg and sperm is not possible.
Correct.
Again, IVF is the only way out.
Yeah.
So in certain conditions, IVF is the only way, and hence age does not matter. Your duration of infertility does not matter. If you have to do it, you have to do it.
Okay.
Under other circumstances, such as if a woman has endometriosis, if she has failed by attempting previous, not such advanced forms of treatments, if she has recurrent miscarriages, if she has a low egg reserve, if the husband has less count and motility in the sperms, all these become indications to do IVF, and anybody who wants to do it should consult a proper fertility specialist, because I feel that as gynecologists, we are more trained to look at women.
Correct.
And for a fertility specialist, you need to look at both. And you need to find out what is their chance of fertility and then give them the guidance. So I think, to cut a long story short, seeing a proper doctor and taking advice as to when is the right way to turn towards IVF would make sense.
There's a different question I would like to ask before I proceed. There's a lot of male ego which comes when it's about checking their fertility and all of that things also. So can you talk about that?
There is, and it's very heartening to know that it is so less now. I way back, I remember, wives crying and saying that if I don't have a child, I will get disowned, divorced, and my mother-in-law won't keep me, because this was so many years back. And now I see men coming in and saying that, Doc, I'm okay to go in for it as long as it does not, affect the health of my wife. And it's really heartening. So I think they have also come a long way. We've also been able to touch on the fact that approximately 50% of infertility is because of the male partner. So that is very important. So the understanding, the awareness that, you too are responsible, and that this is a journey which encompasses both of you. And I think the way, young people are nowadays.
Yes.
So I'm so glad it is the way it is. Yes.
Are there any side effects or anything which might happen due to IVF treatment?
Well, there are, if not done right. The first thing that I feel, and that's the thing that, people do not understand about IVF sometimes. They feel that, the costs vary, stuff happens, why is it sometimes so expensive? Why are there differences? That is because, personally, I feel that the most important thing is to create a healthy embryo.
True.
This is your child, that's our next generation. So everything, every small thing that goes into making it, like for example, in our labs, the AHUs that we call, the ACs, whatever is required, they run 24/7.
Correct.
It's not only during the time that the cases happen. So I think the most important thing is using the right procedure, protocols, drugs, safety in the laboratory is very important. And for the patients, some complications that can happen sometimes is that there was a condition called ovarian hyperstimulation where too many eggs would get developed and that could cause a problem. But the incidence of that is nearly come to 0 now.
Okay,
and the
nice.
other complication sometimes is multiple pregnancies. You can have as many babies you want, one at a time, they say. But because we transfer more than one embryo, that could sometimes cause twins and preterm labor. But otherwise, IVF is really a very safe procedure to do.
That's amazing. Also, like, I would like to ask that, is creating multiple babies, like twins or triplets, in your hand, or it just happens?
No, partly it is in our hand, because if we do transfer only one embryo, you will have one baby. But the problem is we do not have insurance most of the times, and even a very good looking embryo may not be normal.
Correct.
Only 60% of this day 5 or the blastocysts are normal in a young woman.
Okay.
And as she grows older, even lesser are normal. So when we are transferring only one, we're not sure. So sometimes we transfer, but we never transfer more than 2. So it's 2 at the most, 2 embryos that we transfer.
And like, I was just studying yesterday about a thing, little things, just guide me if I'm wrong in that. This process also now of, you know, fertilizing the egg and everything, there might not be success in doing that for one egg, right? It's a multiple process. It might just fail in the beginning, but you know, you collect eggs over the time, and then one of them just gets fertilized. That's also a process. It doesn't happen in one go, right? Or it happens?
Both right and I won't say wrong, but when in IVF, we can't go just with one egg.
Correct.
So you have to have multiple eggs.
Correct.
And the more, the better is the outcome.
Okay.
So even when you try to fertilize these eggs, all may not fertilize. Even if they fertilize, all may not form embryos. Even all the embryos that are formed may not be of good quality. So, you know, there is an attrition at every step. And that's the reason that as you get lesser and lesser eggs, the chances of success keep on diminishing.
Correct. What are the psychological and emotional impacts of going through an IVF process, if you can highlight on that?
I would say the problem with IVF is that it does not guarantee a success. Because most of the times if you go to a doctor, you know that, you know, there is a way out. Here sometimes you do not know, and you might need, it's a journey.
Correct.
Like they say, you know, it's not a session, it's not a treatment, it's a journey. And you have to have the endurance to go through that journey. So I think if you're not prepared mentally, and even today people feel that you're anyway creating an embryo and putting it inside, then what is left? Why can I then not conceive? But that's the mystical part of, you know, having babies and creating lives. But so that many times causes a lot of emotional upheaval. If you don't have support from your partner, if you don't have support from your family, if you know you're told that it is a problem in you due to which you are doing IVF, then that causes a lot of distress. Already there are a lot of hormone variations. So you need a real strong support group for the woman, and I would say even for
Men
the couple,
also.
to go through. But if you understand that, you understand it's a journey, you must be prepared for it, and you have it in you to sometimes tackle the failures that come across, I think it is a very fulfilling journey.
That's true. And currently there are a lot of celebrities who are opting for IVF, and it has somehow become the new normal. But also when I was reading on social media and all, I will not take names of the celebrities, but they get like told, oh, this is a fake pregnancy, or you know, you are just not good enough or fit enough in spite taking care of your health so much in being in the acting business and all. So 2 things, is it a new normal and which should be embraced, and what a message you want to give to the trollers and haters?
Well, I think trolling and hating is something should not happen at all, because each one has a perspective, and to put it in the right manner is one thing, but to bring out hatred is something completely, I think, not required. Each one is having their own personal life, their own journeys. You don't know the story behind what is happening in their lives. So I think one should limit themselves and, you know, maybe put forth what they think about it, but in a very, very nice manner, so that it doesn't hurt other people. And I definitely think, if not now, it is going to be the new normal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think based on this conversation also, and experts like you coming on board and speaking about it so normally and so freely, that it creates a lot of awareness and education around this topic and why this is necessary. There's one more question that usually doctors or specialists recommend that you need to freeze your eggs after a certain amount of age, like post 30 or something. Do you also recommend that for the future? Because
I think 100%. I think 100%. Like I said, you know, I've seen the changes in men. There have been changes in women also. They're more driven. They want to do so many things. They're more educated. You know, there are so many dreams that, you know, now are accessible, I think, which not that you didn't dream earlier, but you just kind of rationalize saying that it's okay, this is my life. But now you don't want to do that anymore. And the problem is that biology and dreams sometimes are not going together for the woman. So if you can just separate these two, you know, have your eggs frozen. And one message that I would like to give is that just because you freeze your eggs does not mean that you cannot conceive naturally later.
True.
This is just like an insurance that you can have just in case you need, because your egg quality at the age of 38 and if you've frozen your eggs at 30, it's going to be very different. True. And therefore the health of your baby is going to be different. So that is something I think every woman should consider. But the only thing I'd like to say is don't wait too long. Don't think of it at 38. But if you're going to think of it and know that probably till 38 you're not going to have a baby, then think of freezing your eggs as early as possible.
That's amazing. What is the role which husband plays in the process of IVF? And also I've seen certain examples of celebrities who have been single fathers also. They don't have a couple or anything. They are happy with their kids. And also, can you elaborate more on the husband side or the male side of things?
I think the partner always plays a very important role, not just in IVF, but whoever it is, the female or the male partner, I think they both have a very important place in each other's life. And just knowing that there's somebody to support you, somebody has your back, for somebody who you mean more than just having a baby, right? You're not a means or you're not a womb to carry his baby, but you are the person that is important. As long as that feeling is conveyed, through different things. You can't, I mean, actions are important. I think a very important role, husband, family, close friends, I think very important. And the other thing that this could be a personal thing that I have observed, but I think gender roles are not very, you know, determined by strict lines anymore.
True.
So what happens is, men also are able to take care of their babies, doing everything that a mother can. A woman can also take care of the baby and not only give her what a mother wants, but also provide for her emotional, financial needs. So I think it's a good space we are living in right now.
Absolutely. And what Zenith sets apart from the other IVF centers? What is different in Zenith that people must go and visit or at least consult with you?
You know, when I entered, I saw something that you had written saying that your direction is more important than your speed. And that is something that we have tried to do at Zenith. We have stuck to a particular direction, ignoring the speed at which the IVF business is increasing. So for us, it always mattered to have a niche place, a boutique place, a personalized space, a it's a center of excellence. And when I say a center of excellence, I don't just, usually when you say a center of excellence, it kind of goes to research and pure basic science. But I feel a center of excellence which can actually relate, touch lives, because ultimately it's about people and how you can translate this into people's lives. So that has been our direction, and we've kept at it. At the same time, like I said, for IVF, technology is key. So making sure that we have the latest technology, making sure that we have the right people behind the technology.
Amazing.
And another thing that we have always said is we call ourselves a fertility center and not an IVF center, because we believe that it is not the IVF process that should get you pregnant. Whoever walks into your clinic and goes out with a pregnancy, whether you've just counseled them, whether you've just given them some few medicines, or whether they've done IVF, that is still the key to your practice. So we have different individuals who specialize in different key sectors, like male infertility, fertility enhancing surgeries, repeated implantation or recurrent pregnancy loss. So we try to do what is really required, rather than just thinking that IVF is one way out. So and of course, we do specialize in cases where there are difficult cases, where they have repeated IVF failures, they have advanced age, they have very severe male factor infertility. So we sometimes get these referral patients where they failed outside. So I think that makes me feel good.
I think what I learned from this conversation is that you are more purpose-driven. Usually, in this medical field, it is sometimes perceived as, like you become very practical because you day-to-day see cases and all of that. But with each case, with each person walking into your center, they know that there is one or the other solution available, or there is counseling where they know that there is somebody to look after them. And there is somebody who's hearing or listening to their problems than just, putting in bills or anything directly that, okay, these are the options you need to look at. So that's amazing about what you're doing.
Thank you.
And delving a little deeper into the treatments, what are the usual costings and how can one cover that? Like, how are the stages and costings of the things which you discussed right now?
So, fertility treatments actually are not very expensive. I was talking to one of my friends. He's a very, very well-known bariatric surgeon. And, surgeries like that, of course, they're wonderful because they improve the whole quality of your life. But even IVF, it is something that changes your life once you have a baby. So I would say the approximate cost of one IVF cycle goes to about 1,50,000, which is not...
Which is impressive.
Which is not at all a big deal for, people in today's day and age with the kind of, income that they have. It's not difficult at all. The issue is that it may not always lead to a success. Then you have to go in for another cycle. But there are various packages that we also make. There are interest-free EMI options that people can take. There are loan facilities available. So there are multiple ways that these can be funded, and sometimes you don't need IVF. That's the beauty, because sometimes we've had patients who've been advised IVF and we've said that, please don't do IVF and do something else, and they've conceived. So that's a saving also.
But saying that you don't require this treatment is also amazing, because this is something different I'm hearing from you. Usually it's like, no, you have to either opt for one or the other treatment, but you are saying that if you absolutely don't need it, don't do it.
Absolutely.
So that honesty coming in from a center is very much important for anyone just walking into it. So that's incredible to know. What are any myths which you've come across while dealing with, any experiences, any myths around this?
I think long time back, the myth was that it is only a female factor, which has changed now. There is still one problem that people feel is that IVF is a treatment for women to conceive even at later points in time in terms of age. And I think that's a myth, because the older you get, the quality of your eggs is going to deteriorate.
Yeah.
So it is not like IVF is a panacea for everything, that irrespective of whether you're 40 or you're postmenopausal or whatever, you can still use your own eggs. So that is one big problem. The other myth is, I think men who don't have sperms in the semen sample think that they cannot father a child, and that is not true at all. Even if there are no sperms in the semen sample, we can either treat it or take sperms from the testis and help this patient couple to conceive through IVF. So the other thing is that people feel that when they're doing an IVF, it is many times just using somebody else's eggs or sperms. And that's not true at all. We always try and use self gametes, that is the woman's eggs and the men's sperms. Yes, there are certain conditions where you have to use one or the other. That's very few cases require that. But if that is required, then the counsel, the proper consent is taken, and only then we do go ahead with it.
Okay. So there is like, I don't know if but you agreed upon doing that, but there are certain untold realities or shocking revelations, or I was just watching this series on Netflix about 1,000 babies created via IVF. So there are these biological problems which might happen if the whole chart is only disrupted by one father creating 1,000 babies.
Yeah.
So can you talk about some shocking revelations?
I think that's a very important point, and that is something that we as people have to think, this is our next generation going out, right?
Yeah,
we can't just, So the problem is, if you have multiple babies created using like one sperm sample, or you're going to have consanguinity, right? Somebody is going to be somebody's half brother, half sister, something like that. They again getting married, not knowing what is happening. So that is why now laws and rules are being put in place, so that you're very strict about using and limiting how you use the donor eggs or the donor sperms, which is very important.
Yeah, because that is like I was just going through
any Bollywood movies, on IVF nowadays, starting with Vicky Donor that came out, and then
like being a father of 1,000 babies or something. So without naming any individuals, can you share a story where your patient's experience was particularly surprising or revealing, and how did that impact you or this treatment? Any experience you've had, any difficult situation you've dealt with?
So I think let me talk about two cases. One is about this girl who had infertility for 5 years. It was a case of unexplained infertility, which means everything seemingly was normal, and all was fine, and she was like she tried multiple cycles of IUI, not the IVF, but the IUI, and failure after failure. And then I met her and I talked to her, and that's one thing that has, being able to not do a lot of things but concentrate on IVF has given me the ability to be able to spend time with my patients. So when I was talking to her, she started talking about this feeling where as a child there was a problem in the household. She chose to stay with her father, and after a few years she lost her mother, and she was carrying this tremendous guilt that she was responsible for her mother's death, or she's not worth becoming a mother herself because she has harmed. And once she actually broached that topic, she went through counseling, and we talked to her, and then we just gave her certain just basic medications, and this woman conceived. So this is an anecdotal case, I agree, but I think it still brings out the fact of healing, like you said. There is an emotional aspect. There are some other issues which could be influencing your pregnancy, and I think all of them need to be catered to. And I think second is more scientific. Again, we had this one woman, she had had about 3 IVF failures, like 3 cases where the eggs were retrieved, and she had put in embryos about 5 times. It was a case of recurrent implantation failure. Embryos were looking good. And basically she was told that there's no way out. She either has to replace her egg, either use a different egg or use a different sperm, and they did not want to do that. So we actually investigated her and found that there was an immunological problem, that her body was rejecting the embryo. And there was a process through which you could make the body accept that embryo. Wow. So she went through another cycle of IVF and she's conceived, and she has, I think her baby must be about 2 years old.
Amazing.
Now. Yeah. So some things are wonderful if you can.
That's the beauty of science, and also empathy and understanding. So I think it goes hand in hand. Science goes hand in hand with healing. It's like, something which cannot be broken into, like, because science is considered a very practical approach, but I feel that it has some connection.
I think so too. I think we just don't understand something, so we keep it aside. But I think so too. And I think ultimately science is to, create beauty, joy, happiness, togetherness in life. If we can, put everything in an amalgamation, it would be much more wonderful.
That's amazing. What are the future goals for Zenith, and what are the future goals for yourself? Like, where do you look, you treating or you being envisioning something for yourself and for Zenith? What do you want to do in the coming years?
Something like this gives us a platform to start thinking also, I think. But for Zenith, I think I've always wanted that every patient who walks in should go back with a pregnancy, though that's not very easily possible because of medical limitations, because of so many limitations in life and other things. But I think I definitely want that Zenith should have the highest pregnancy rate. And it does. But as things go forward, the pregnancy rates will increase. And I want that we keep up with it and make sure that, we are up there in every way, and then whatever it takes. I won't say that I want Zenith to do this research or that research. I just want us to impact people positively and with the most excellence in your field of science.
Absolutely.
So I think that is what I would want. And I think for myself, I think if I can connect with people more, talk to them, even talk to people when things don't succeed, and if I feel that I'm going to be able to contribute to them feeling better about life in general. So both, I mean, excellence, taking my place there, and also being able to contribute in some way that can influence people positively in terms of beauty and joy in their life, irrespective of the circumstances of having the baby.
That's amazing. Okay, so this was not decided, but I thought that I want to do a quick rapid fire with you.
Oh.
You can answer.
I'm scared of rapid fire.
You can answer in a yes or no, or just give a one-word answer. So, can women with menopause become pregnant?
Yes, she can, but she may have to use eggs from a healthy fertile donor, but she can.
Okay. If I decide that my baby wants to have a blue eyes, can that IVF can have that?
Not right now, but maybe in the future. Yes, you can have designer babies depending on the laws around it. But medically, it can be possible.
Okay, that's amazing. Can anyone have more than triplets? Do IVFs?
They should not be having, because you should not and you cannot transfer too many embryos into the uterus. There are laws around it now. So you can never transfer more than 3. Ideally 1. The second best is at the most 2.
2, not 3 or 4. Okay. Any name like Doctor something. So can you coin yourself like doctor? Like the way we thought that the title for this podcast could be Art of Creating Families. So for you, like Doctor something. Can you make a title for yourself?
No, not really. I can't think of anything.
Doctor of creating families. So sorry.
No, well, maybe after this we should think of a name.
Okay, but that's a wrap. And what did you think about this podcast? And any message you would like to give to our audience?
I think it was wonderful. Thank you so much for making me feel so comfortable. And the message is, frankly, I know we are doing good work, but I think it takes a lot to create awareness and to take it to people, right? We are letting people come in, but you are taking it to people. So I think it's very important in today's day and age to take the right message across to people. And so thank you for doing that.
Thank you. We are grateful. And we learned so much. As a team, we learned so much today about this field. And thank you for letting us do that. For you, it's an honor for us, for you to be on the podcast. And we'll be releasing the podcast soon. And this is a very interesting topic and something everybody must be aware of, no matter what your age is. So do watch and do share this podcast with anybody and everybody. Share it with your families. This is nothing which should be behind the closed doors. This is something which you need to talk and you need to be aware of right from the age of 25 or before. So make sure you subscribe to our channel and make sure that you watch this podcast and share it with as many people as possible. Thank you so much for tuning in to Unfiltered Conversations today.